I knew it. I fucking knew it.
Reflections on that period, right now.
That's the only time in a game of footy I've ever had like sort of tingles or goosebumps.
When that siren goes, are you like, fuck, we got to replay this?
Defence wins premierships, and it will always be the case.
So you clearly had a very good side.
So the year after was when the AFL said, hey, we can't have this happen. True story. I don't think I've shared this story.
Okay, over here for Gather Round, number 2, Leigh Montagna joins us here on BackChat, powered by Paywise. Hello, Joey. How are you, mate?
Good, thank you,
Lee,
boys. Yeah,
thanks for coming.
Going well.
Now, thanks for coming straight out of the casino to join us here this morning. No, you've had a nice sleep. Joey, we ask every guest we've had on this podcast, about 150 in now, and the same question first up goes to every guest, right? We know you're a good footballer, right? All Australian, played a lot of games of footy, St Kilda Football Club, legend of the club, probably. We know that, but we want to ask off the top your greatest sporting achievement not on the football field, thanks to our good friends at TABtouch. So we know what you can do on the footy field, and we'll get into that, right? We've got 45 minutes to get through that. We don't know what can you do off it in the sporting realm.
Good. Probably a hole in one at golf.
Yeah.
And I'm not really I'm not a massive golfer. Like I'm like everyone else. I play off 18. I enjoy playing a round of golf. A member at one of the Sandbelt courses in Melbourne, but not a great golfer. But was lucky enough playing Woodlands, probably 10 years ago, playing with a few of the boys. So Lenny Hayes, Brendan Goddard, and one of the other Saints boys, and had a hole in one. So the thrill of that was like, I'm not one, even when I played footy, I was never one to sort of carry on. I didn't but the adrenaline rush I got watching the ball roll and trickle down in the hole, I fucking threw my club and I ran around like an idiot.
Great.
So it was one of the great thrills of my life. And my old man's been playing golf for 40 years and never had a hole in one. So it's sort of something that you go, you can tick that off. So I've had a hole in one playing golf.
How was the reaction from the boys?
Yeah, they were pumped for me. Yeah, they were pumped. And then we filmed it as I walked up to the hole to pull the ball out of the cup. The boys filmed it. So I've sort of got all that evidence and kept the ball. So that's probably it for me.
It's very good.
That's fair enough.
It's very good.
Dan's taken
5 for 16 in an under 12s cricket grand final.
Yeah, good.
Chilwell Hill Cricket Club's a huge club back in Perth, the Lions. So did that in the grand final.
I was a hurdler, state hurdling champion.
Yeah.
Flags, nippers.
Yeah.
Under 8s champ, probably.
Yeah.
For a big tall lad. Now, mate, we're going to get into the footy side of things, but before we do, powered by Paywise this year, what was your first car? You remember your first car?
Yeah, it was. It was one of those old, one of the old Commodores.
Colour?
It was like a dark blue. One of those.
Like a VL or something.
Yeah, good one. VL Commodore, something like that. They'd done 140,000 Ks, and it was $6,000 cash or something like that.
Yeah, great. To rock up first day at the footy club.
Well, I had to get it. So I got drafted. I was at Schoolies when I got drafted. Like, this is how good it was in the old days. I was actually on the Gold Coast at Schoolies.
Wow.
And it
wasn't
on TV.
On Cavill Ave?
On Cavill Ave, yeah, on Cavill Ave. And the draft was on the internet. So we had to go across the road to an internet cafe. That sounds like I'm 100. I'm like 40.
Dial-up
So
start.
2001 draft. Like, it wasn't like it was in the 80s. So 2001 draft, I had to go across to a internet cafe on the Goldie in Cavill Ave, watch the draft on the internet, pick 37, went straight to the beach, started to get amongst with the boys, but we sort of knew you've got to wait for the call from the coach. So I sort of didn't go too hard. Grant Thomas at the time rang, said congratulations and all that sort of stuff. Told him I was on the Gold Coast and I was still had the rest of the week. It was only our second day in and I had another 5 or 6 days. Goes, congratulations. We'll see you at the club tomorrow. And I was like, I'm at school. He's like, no, you're coming back. So I had to change flights. Didn't have a car or anything like that. So straight away, the old man and I, like basically the next day, had to just look online and start like looking for a car because all of a sudden I'm living, 30 minutes away from St Kilda. And had to buy a car and drive to training 2 days later.
I love that you've tried to get. No, I'm actually on schoolies. At the time, you would have thought that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Grant Thomas going, who is this little 37 in an internet cafe?
Yeah, spewing like they cut short the schoolies trip, but. It was a pretty big night that night. I give you the tip with all my schoolmates on Cavill Avenue after I've just got drafted. So we made the most of it, and then flew home the next day.
What was life like growing up for you? What, your footy family, your sporting family?
Yeah, pretty normal sort of upbringing. Younger brother, younger sister, mum and dad, just living in the suburbs of Ivanhoe in Melbourne. Always loved my sport. I was a kid that played basketball and footy every weekend. They were sort of the two sports. Always loved it. Well, Collingwood supporters growing up. Dad used to take me to the footy to watch Collingwood. When I break for the Pies, sort of late 90s, they were shit. They were no good. So I used to basically go and watch Nathan Buckley. I used to sit and just watch him and count his stats and just sort of like keep track of him because he was about the only good player at the Pies at the time. Was he playing in your debut?
You debuted against the Pies?
Yeah, it was amazing. So I grew up bragging for Collingwood, and then my debut was against Collingwood. So Nathan Buckley was playing, Anthony Rocco, the guys that I grew up idolising, and now I'm playing against them. It's a weird feeling.
Did you get a touch?
4. Yeah. My first touch.
You're too busy looking at the ball.
Yeah, my first touch, I kicked out of the back line, kicked it straight to, remember Ryan Loney? Remember the Loney twins? Straight to Ryan Loney, outside defensive 50. He's kicked it straight back overhead for a goal. That was my first touch. So
welcome.
Things could only get better from there, to be honest.
First kick, first goal club. Your first kick, first turnover goal club.
Straight over my head. So only got better from there. But just played footy. And I was never one of those, I was never sort of a superstar junior. I never won any sort of league B&Fs or was in any of those representative sides.
Yes.
It was really only as I got to sort of 17, 18, I sort of snuck into the Vic Metro squad as an 18-year-old. Basically got a game because Chris Judd was the captain. He dislocated his shoulder. His shoulder popped out in the first game for Vic Metro. Yes. I didn't play. I was an emergency. Judd popped his shoulder out. I got the chance to step in the second game for Vic Metro. Played 2 pretty good games for Vic Metro. And then from there, sort of went back and played the local footy and sort of elevated and was on the radar. So, pretty nice upbringing.
You finish your career as the 7th most games played at St Kilda, but you can't get a game for Vic Metro. So not what changed, but how do you go on and have such a great career and over a long time? What's the secret?
I look back for me. I think I had the ability to learn and grasp concepts. So I was even at AFL level. My first 4 years, I only played like 20 odd games. I was pretty slight and had a lot to work on. But I was always one that every year I could grasp what I needed to work on, what the game was doing, and sort of evolved. And I was probably, I would say, got a little bit better every year. So for my first 10 years, I got better every single year. So it was more of a slow burn, but my strength was my ability to learn, grasp concepts, understand what it took for me. I was pretty pragmatic about where I was as a footballer and what I needed to work on. And in the end, I sort of even knew where I sat talent-wise. I didn't have as much talent as Del Sano and Goddard and couldn't play like Lenny Hayes. But what I did was I was good at what I could do. And that was what sort of led to me playing well most weeks without having the ability of these other boys.
So you think like maybe getting pick 37, sort of just always being under the radar helps you in the long run of your longevity of sticking around?
It was probably more where I was at, but what probably helped me was having a lot of boys that were drafted ahead of me that were all sort of more advanced. So Luke Ball was pick 3 that year. He was a real professional at 18. Del Sano and Goddard came the year after, and Xavier Clark was a top 10 draft pick. So I sort of knew where I sat, but having those guys that were ahead of me, I could sort of, it gave me something to reach towards. I wanted to be like them. I wanted to play senior footy early and wanted to try and do what they were doing. So that gave me a bit of more of the motivation and the drive to try and sort of catch my peers.
Had a pretty special, you mentioned most of them there, like a pretty talented core group of guys that you blokes would have been all close. Like to have the success, and no, you don't get the flag in the end, but to have that success you had as a group, like you have to have that core group, and you were involved in that, right? And you named some, Del Santo and Rewald and Goddard, and must have been great walking into a footy club and building that sort of together with guys similar age.
It was, as you know. I mean, that's the best part of it. The bond you have with your teammates. You're like brothers. We describe it. You probably go through more moments in life and life lessons with your teammates than you do with your own family. Like you go through the ups and downs of the highs and the lows and, the off-field dramas. And, we're all in tears after the 2009 grand final, sitting in a room, like things like that you probably don't do with your schoolmates, that you go through these life experiences that sort of give you this bond. And we were lucky, a good group of us that were all around the same age, came through together. We were winning wooden spoons and finishing the bottom 2 in sort of 2002, 2003. To then be a good team and a strong team. And we always say we don't have the medal, but we've got the bond of like a premiership team, which, we don't have the medal, but we've got that connection. You can look, you can look across the street or across the table and, we went through a lot together and we've got that respect for each other.
You mentioned Nick Rewalt. I've heard a lot of stories around how sort of crazy he was training wise and even before games. I think you used to go, you like him running in his full kit.
We rock on the bus. We rock up, literally West Coast, travelled across the country, rock up an hour and a half before the game. And Rewalt's out there fucking doing laps and like running a 5K time trial.
Yeah.
And I'll be about to play on him and be like, what's this fucking bloke doing?
Yeah. Yeah, no, he was different. He was built different. But most of those guys at that level are different. They're just wired differently. And you can't copy it. You can't manufacture it. It's just the way they are. I mean, I lived with him for a year. Nick Cozzy and I lived, Justin Kaczynski and I lived with Rui for a year, and it was shocking to live with. He was that just like hardwired. It was just painful. You know, you try and relax and he's uptight and he was writing his affirmations on a piece of paper, like 100 of them and all that sort of stuff. He was shocking to live with. So yeah, he was just built different. You know, he was a stress head. He even admits now he wishes if he could go back in time, I'll speak on his behalf, but he sort of said that he wishes he could be more relaxed and actually enjoy game day. Like he used to crack the shits because I used to enjoy game day. Like if we were playing a night game, that day of the game was so much, was nice for me because you didn't have to answer any phones, you didn't have to do anything. You could just go about your own business, have your lunch and just relax. But he was that uptight. He never enjoyed game day. And he looks back now and goes, geez, I wish I could actually enjoy.
So he used to love training, did he?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Yeah, he loved all that. Yeah, different. Felt different.
Yeah. What sort of teammate were you then? Well, as a player, were you
no.
Some people would see you in the media and they would have an opinion on what sort of guy you were. What were you?
I was always a footy head. So I was the one that, used to watch every game of footy, used to love it. I was always pretty relaxed as a player. Like I never used to get too stressed. So like there was a group of us that used to, because you've always got the different types of guys on game day. There's the stress heads like Rui and Brendan Goddard and all that. Then you got the guys that are a bit, OCD and they're tying up their shoelaces or listen to music. And there was always a group of us that used to go into the physio room because we were pretty relaxed. We'd tell some stories, have some jokes. So that was sort of myself, Dalsano, Milne, Adam Schneider, all pretty sort of cash, sit there with the physios and chill out. So we were always pretty good teammates. But one day, see Ross Lyon, the old school Ross Lyon, he's a hard ass. He was the old, now these days, coaches want you to crack jokes and everyone's smiling.
Everyone loves each other.
Yeah, run out the race.
Send and text in the
One day we were in the physio room and someone's told a gag and we've all had a laugh. And as we've laughed, we literally saw, Ross Lyon has walked past the physio room and he just poked his head in and he just sort of saw who it was. And we thought, and he didn't say anything. He just sort of looked and then he kept walking. And we've all said to ourselves, oh, this isn't going to be good if we lose, right? And this is when we're at the peak of our powers. We didn't lose for a few years there in 09 and 10 over, but we lost this game, right? And seriously, as soon as we walk into the rooms afterwards, Ross is standing at the door. Oh, I knew it. I fucking knew it. You big heads carrying on, laughing, joking, thinking you're pretty good, happy with yourselves. And he just teed off on us. And we felt like saying, Ross, we've been doing this every year for 2 years. You've never had a problem with it. As soon as we lose one game, we weren't focused, we weren't concentrating and all that sort of stuff. But that's how it was a few years ago. And now they encourage that, don't they? Encourage players to be light and relaxed and go out and play.
Jack Rewalt kicked 10 on us one day and he started the first quarter. I wasn't on him, just for the record. I was playing on someone else. And Eric McKenzie, who best and fairest winner, very good player, did his knee and his career short, but he started and kicked 5 in the first quarter, Jack, who's on. Yeah. Anyway, we come to the quarter time huddle and Daniel Metropolis was actually our backline coach and just beelined easy, right? Hasn't started well. Easy, very quiet, just plays his role, unassuming, just he's standing there and he's fidgeting a little bit. He's had 5 kicked on him. It's not going well. We're 10 goals down quarter time. And he goes, I fucking knew it. I saw you yesterday. You were walking around the hotel, no shoes on. You get gallivanting around. Why aren't you wearing shoes? You haven't prepared well enough. You're wearing no shoes. And he's standing there going, yep, no, you're right. Yeah, no worries.
It's amazing.
Coaches, they're tapped. And you've played, Ross Lyon. We've had lots of guys on and played under Ross. Yeah. And it was great coach.
Yeah,
right?
He's a good guy. Very good
great coach. But there's some stories about Ross.
Oh, plenty of stories.
I'm just reeling some off the top of my head. Pristine Pavlich.
Yeah, pristine Pav.
Right.
Yeah.
I think he gave someone a spray after a game, and then the player turned to the other guy and goes, "I didn't even play today."
Yeah. He liked doing that, going one by one. Yeah.
Were you ever in the gun?
I copped the beauty in Sydney one year. We were getting beaten at halftime. I was getting tagged by Kieran Jack. And as you know, Sydney, it's always hard to get a kick against the Swans when they're at their best.
Even if you're not getting tagged.
Yeah, exactly right. And we were getting beaten at halftime and Dalsano and I weren't getting a kick. So he's teed off at halftime and Dalsano and I, midfielders, giving us a spray. So at half time, he's given the spray, and then he just decided, as he was giving us the spray, he goes, you know what? Fuck it. Fisher, Gilbert, you can go and play in the midfield. Del Santo, Montagna, you can go play in the back line. You can go and learn what it's like to defend.
You're
so
kidding.
he just in the
He
half,
flipped the magnets.
He flipped the magnets at half time. So we've gone, oh, righto. So we've gone out for the third quarter. I've gone Del Santo having to go to the back line. So Del Santo goes and stands on Jared McVeigh. I go and pick the smallest bloke, little Jared Moore. Good little player, Jared Moore. But
Fisher and Gilbert are effectively key position players.
key
Gilbert,
position, full defenders.
Gilbert was
good
up and
defenders,
down,
but he put them in the centre bounce. Del Santo and I go to halfback. Well, the runner comes out. Paul Roos, because I was getting tagged, the message came straight out to my opponent, Jared Moore, go take Montagna to the goal square and don't move, because they were happy to get me out of the play. So I literally went and stood at fullback in the goal square and like an Auskick kid. We weren't allowed to move. We were basically kicking the mud, standing there. It's the most embarrassing half of my life. I'm just standing at fullback.
Well, Ross left. He left you there.
He left me there. But what happened, Del Santo, he had 2 goals kicked on him in 5 minutes at halfback, so he was lucky enough to get moved to go back into the midfield because he couldn't defend. So Del went back into the midfield. I stayed in the back line, and that was actually the famous week. That the week after is when Ross Lyon dropped Nick Del Santo and Stephen Milne. So this was 2008, and he made a statement, and he said, "You know what? We're not standing for this. I'm dropping Del Santo and Milne, both all Australians and 2 of the all-time greats, particularly for St Kilda. Sent them to the VFL, and they played a week of VFL." And that was a line in the sand when Ross Lyon, he's halfway through his second year at St Kilda, made a statement, I don't care reputations, I don't care how good you are. If you don't abide by our standards, you're not playing. And from that moment on, and I was lucky to survive. I was the sort of they dropped Del Santo Mill, and I sort of held on.
Played your role in the goal.
Yeah, I didn't get one kicked on me. It's not that hard as a defender. Just don't let your bloke get a kick. And then they came back into the side. And then from that moment on, the back half of 2008, we went on a run. We made a prelim, and then obviously 2009, 2010. We had a lot of success. So it was actually a turning point in that St Kilda period.
I've heard a few boys say, Lee Spur, work a lot with him in the media over in WA, that he used to attack the top. I used to take the head off, and the rest are going to follow. Like that sounds like that's the sort of tactic.
Yeah, that
right?
was. Yeah, and
everyone
then,
getting line behind.
Everyone getting line, and then the only time Nick Rewalt probably got a spray, and he hated it, right? Because we never got the spray. But that was one of Ross Lyon's other ones at halftime, and this was actually quite entertaining. So he's come in at halftime, he's got the stat sheet, and we're getting beaten again. He's going, Del Santo, 1 tackle. Schneider, 2 tackles. Montagna, 1 tackle. And he's going through, and then he goes, Rewalt, 0 tackles for the fucking year. and we actually started giggling in the team meeting. Ross is giving us a spray, and we've all started giggling because Rui's just got the fucking 0 tackles for the year. And
he's sitting there going, obviously not
poor
forward.
Rui, he never copped the spray. He didn't know how to take it. We're water for ducks back for us. We're just copping another spray from Rossi, And poor Rui, he was shattered.
That is very good. So, 08, you're playing International Rule Series?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not great with my history. So I did play 3 or 4 times. I presume I did play in 08, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So you would have played it a couple of times. What was that like? We haven't spoken to many lads about being on those tours and played against the Irish. There was a few of them. Did you play in the ones where there was
we were post all the violence.
Right.
Yeah, we sort of were after all that.
So
and we were at that period where it was like, hey,
they'd
boys.
sit you down.
Yeah. None of this. Yeah, it was and to be fair, the Irish boys are actually rippers. I remember having a few nights out with the Irish boys. They're all good lads, as you can imagine. They just had white line fever. But for a bloke like me, who, as I said earlier, was a footy head and I loved footy, I loved the international rules. Like, I got to play with the best players. Like, I had a man crush on Fifey, so I played with Fifey, and it was like, for me, that was awesome. I'm chatting, getting around Fifey and Travie Boak and all these boys that, I love watching play. To get to play with them, Robbie Gray, mate, he's one of the best blokes. Like, I walked away with Robbie Gray and thought, hey, one of the best blokes I've met, and loved the way that he played his footy. He's one of my favourite players. So to do that for me, I just thought it was awesome.
Pull an Aussie jumper on as well.
And that's right. Yeah, that's right.
You get to represent your country.
You do, yeah. Which is pretty special.
I know people can fob it off, but
Yeah.
There's only 2 people here sitting at this table who have represented their country, you and Dan.
Yeah, fistball.
That probably should be your greatest.
Yeah.
What's fistball?
Mate. We don't actually have time to get into it.
Okay.
But Dower defenders. I mean, you tell you're the Australian
Is it
representative.
like handball?
It's more like a volleyball on a big field. It can bounce. Yeah, you can only use your fists. So a lot of spoiling.
Dower defender type game.
Yeah.
I mean, you should probably lead with that as your greatest sporting achievement.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool.
Yeah, representing the country. Saturday national anthem. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the period. Did you actually?
Yeah, we stood up. everyone online.
It's brilliant. Well, I'll run you through it later.
Yeah, thanks.
So 2009, 2010, you play in 3 grand finals in 12 months.
Yeah, not many people have done that.
Correct, correct. And it's unique, but it's also an incredibly successful time for the footy club. What's your reflections on that period, right now? But
yeah. I mean, as I sort of touched on earlier, we feel like we've got a team that we don't have the medal, but we've got the bond of a premiership team where we've got the utmost respect for one another. We all get on really well. We still catch up once a year. We do it prelim week. Can't do the grand final reunion. So we do prelim week, but we all get together prelim week and catch up, and we all get on great. So, I mean, look, of course it's disappointing you don't have the medal, but at the end of the day, and we've sort of spoken about this, I mean, there are a lot of players that have a premiership medal that, might not have the same sort of relationships and friendships and bonds with their teammates, So that's probably as is important to me as having, displaying the medal and having it on the CV is that we've actually got a bond as a group that will last us a lifetime.
Do you reflect on the games at all? You'd have, not regrets, but you'd have moments that you think about, you personally?
Yeah, no? Of course you do. But as I said earlier, I think my strength is I'm pretty pragmatic and pretty understanding. Like, it's a game of footy.
Yeah.
Miss kicks, miss goals, that happens. You sort of can't sort of live your life going, what if, because that's just the way the game is. It's what we love about it. We probably the hardest part was the 2009 grand final against Geelong when you look back at it. And it was nice of my old man to sort of ring me about 6 weeks after. He goes, have you watched the replay yet? He goes, I didn't realise it was 37 inside 50s to 18. I said, yeah, thanks, Dad. We were dominating that game against Geelong, just weren't able to put enough score on the board, and we left the door open for that brilliant team to come back. That's probably the one that got away. 2010, we were 4 goals down at halftime. And for us to get back and hit the front when Brennan Goddard took that hanger top of the square, it's the only time in a game of footy I've ever had sort of tingles or goosebumps where he took the mark and kicked the goal with 5 minutes to go. And I actually remember standing on top of the 50 and getting the tingles thinking, holy shit, this is real now. We could win this. We're 6 points up, 4 minutes to go, 5 minutes to go. So that was pretty cool. And then obviously went straight back into the centre bounce and they got a goal straight away.
And the noise at that time?
Yeah, the whole moment. That moment where you're actually like a sort of supporter or spectator, you're standing there and you're thinking, holy shit.
If you're a footy nuffy, so I'm a footy nuffy, and I tell a few sporty stories and put a lot of mayonnaise on them. But in a grand final, I've lost one, but there's a few moments like that where I've had it's like an out of body experience. It's like I was wrapping my house in streamers, blue and white Geelong streamers as a kid, and now I'm in the middle of the MCG and. And it sounds weird because you're in the middle of the grand final. Yeah. But it sounds like you've had that too.
Yeah, it's spot on. Yeah, you have. You're thinking this is that little split moment. You go, is this real? Yeah. Running out the MCG, the national, that bit after the national anthem because that's coming because you've watched grand finals your whole life, and when that national anthem finishes, what's about to happen, and you're actually out there, so you sort of almost wait for it and take it all in. So.
And then you realise Ross Lyon's watching down.
And then it's like, right. Then you realise you can't just sit back and watch the game. You've actually got to go. You've got to go and make it happen. So you pretty quickly switch back into game.
Would you have won it if it does what it does now? Is extra time?
Nah, I see again. I don't buy into that because I'm the pragmatic type that goes. The ball goes back to the middle, and it's a ball up, and one team's winning that clearance, and from there the game plays on. So I don't buy in or subscribe to, we had the momentum and we would have won it in extra time because
still got to win it.
You still got to win it, and I understand how it works. But it's ironic that those grand finals, and this sounds now like a bit of like a woe St Kilda, poor us sort of thing, but in 2009, the grand final, Tom Hawkins kicked the goal and he hit the post, massive deflection.
Yes,
umpire missed it, called it a goal. So the year after was when the AFL said, hey, we can't have this happen in a grand final. We can't have a grand final decided by an incorrect goal review. Let's bring in the goal review system. We're like, okay, 12 months too late. And then the following year was the draw and no extra time. Had to come back the next week. We had 7 or 8 blokes that were shot. Mentally, we were shot because we put everything into it and we were no good the following week. Then a few years later, we can't have a replay. That's unfair. Let's make it extra time. So we're like, oh, well, thanks for that. Extra time would have been handy a couple of years earlier. So so we're probably on the end of a bit of bad luck.
Did you when that siren goes, are you like, fuck, we got to replay this? Does that message come up at all?
No, because we'd never spoken about it. Yeah. So even for me, who was a footy head, I had this split second where we had the moment of like, oh, and then it was like, oh, what happens now? And what happened was, because must have been psychological, both teams really quickly sort of ran into their huddles to get together. So Collingwood did it, and then we did it. And there was a part of me thinking, oh, we might play extra time here. Even though I knew that it wasn't extra time. I was thinking to myself, maybe they'll change it and let's just play extra time now. So that was my first thought. So you sort of run into the huddle, and then very quickly Andrew Demetrio came out in the field, and the captains went over, and it came back and said, no, you're playing again the next week. It was just a bizarre, like nothing feeling. Like you've put your heart and soul. You get told it's your last game, put it all out there. This is it. And then it's an empty feeling. And what was bizarre about our grand final was for some reason the change rooms got flooded at halftime. So while the game was on, all of our bags and everything got moved to the other side of the ground, to the Auskick change rooms on the southern stand side of the MCG. So we had to walk over to these other rooms that weren't even ours, didn't know where our bags were. Half of our parents were in the rooms, half weren't. Half the parents didn't know whether to come and give you a hug, whether to stand back and do nothing. So it was just this real weird, bizarre sort of whole situation where, like, yeah, no one's really, only a handful of people have experienced before, and it was quite unique. I've heard
as well about the dinner that night, because you still do the dinner regardless, win, lose, draw.
Yeah,
and how I think someone from Collingwood talked about us, so they treated it like, all right, we're on again.
Half time. They treat it like half. I think they did a speech. They sort of say that might have been psychologically a bit of the difference. So Ross Lyon said to us, hey, we're not going, boys, you aren't going to that dinner. Go home, recover, start to get your heads around it. Where Collingwood all went to the dinner. And Mick Malthouse apparently got up and did an amazing speech like, hey, boys, this is half time of the grand final. It's half time. And they think that was a significant factor. Now, how do you know what was right or wrong? We went home. We had our recovery. And then we did on the Sunday, I remember the sports psychologist had us all for a session to sort of try and just debrief or get your emotions and your feelings out, because everyone's, remember, gone home after a grand final, sitting on your couch that night thinking, what are we doing now? We're going to get ourselves up again so we had to have the sports psych and have a chat and just sort of air out our feelings and thoughts and start to plan the week and try and go about it. But as I said, we were shot mentally and physically the following week.
A lot of footy teams will have footy trips planned, and it'll be that week after the grand final. Did you blokes have one planned at all?
Good question.
Because that's what I thought of. Yeah,
the footy trip.
I don't know whether we had to change our plans. 09, 010. I can't remember. It was Vegas. As I said, I'm no good. Might have been Vegas. So we went on one of those ships, but I don't know whether it wasn't front of mind. Put it that way.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there.
I remember that morning, like grand final day for me is like one of my Christmas day for me. I love grand final day. Go to mate's house, barbecue. It's great. I remember
early start in Perth too.
Woke up that morning with like pink eye, basically. Both my eyes completely closed over, swollen as.
Tough to watch the granny.
Yeah, I was so flat. I was so flat that I missed it. And then there was the draw. I watched by myself at home. And I was like, next week we're doing it again. My eyes were good. I was pumped.
I was in Vegas on a blackjack table and forgot the grand final was on.
Yeah, right.
Good year for West Coast that year. We won the Wooden Spoon, I think, 2010. Right, yeah. So we'd been there for a couple of weeks. Yeah. And someone told me it was a draw. I was like, the grand final's on. What's the time after that? So you go back-to-back grand finals. You lose 3, but lose both years, and then you don't get back there. So is that just footy? It sounds like you're saying sort of pragmatic, but you clearly had a very good side.
Yeah, we did.
Talented side, and you don't get back there after that, and you never get another opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, we should probably look at it. It's like that cricketer that plays Shield cricket for a long time. They just didn't get the chance to open the batting because Matty Jaiden and Justin Langer opened the batting for 10 years. You go, I'm as good as anyone, but you just got beaten by someone better. And that was probably, that Geelong team of 09, that 7-9-11 team with all those, that is probably, you could argue, that one of the greatest team in the modern era with stacked. The players they had. That was stacked. And then, that Collingwood 2010, they were as good as anyone as well. So unfortunately, that's just how it was. 2011, we started really slowly. We probably did, and I sort of even mentioned this week a little bit about the Brisbane Lions. I sort of understand the psyche of continually being up and up and up and then not getting there, and just getting to the emotional levels and the attention to detail to do what it takes. It is hard. The little bits and the little things you do during the week.
A lot more than talent. Every side's talent.
That's right. And we probably struggled at the start of 2011. We then had the famous chat where Ross Lyon circled us all up again whenever it was midway through 2011 and did the old, you've checked out. And basically questioned whether we were as committed as we were the previous years. And we went on a run the back end of 11 and made finals, but it just wasn't the same. We just didn't quite have that same zest about us, the same energy. You only get a little period. You only get a window. You do.
If you could have it forever, then
that's right.
Collingwood would just win next 10 premierships.
That's exactly right. So that was, and it just sort of petered out from there. And we had some players retire and we're getting to the end of their career, and it just sort of fizzled out from there.
I was having a look at some of the backmen you played with, and we'll be asking some backman-related questions in a little bit. So I'll actually hold that for a bit, but I want you to just keep in mind some of the dour types that you would have played with. Mate, your career high, 47 disposals, 2 goals.
Yeah.
Did you get 3 votes that day?
No, I only got the 2 Brownlow votes.
Is that right?
I only got the 2 Brownlow votes.
I actually don't know the answer.
No, that's true. I only got 2 Brownlow votes.
You had 47 and kicked 2.
Who got 3?
I don't want to ruin it. It sort of ruins the whole thing about the 40. Well, Jack Stephen also had 47 touches in the same game.
Who are you playing?
We played Freo. But what happened? We played Freo, but it was the last round of the year, and it was the week that Ross Lyon left all the team at home because the boys were playing finals. So 2013. So they must have finished on top, Freo. Or must
close
have
to it. I mean, they won they played the grand final.
So Ross Lyon, because there was no pre-finals bye in 2013, so Ross Lyon left all the good players.
That's right.
So this ruins the story, Scully. See, it's better when I just say I had 47 touches one day. If you want to know the real story, we're playing against a Fremantle reserve side. Like Craig Moller was playing. Craig Moller played in that game.
Plays in the NBA.
He played that game.
He just retired.
There was some players in there. If you look back at that 2013 Fremantle team that played that day, Dan, you might have been able to get 47 touches. So it ruins the story a little bit. But yeah, we did run around and filled our boots.
47 is a lot of touches, mate.
It is a lot.
That would take me literally 5 minutes to complete again.
It was a good
Where
day.
we playing?
In
the midfield?
Yeah, midfield wing, through the midfield wing.
Out,
but I did come off with about 7 or 8 minutes to go and knew that I knew I was in the 40s, and we did joke, but the blokes on the bench were like, "I'll get me back. I've got to try and get 50." Like it was sort of towards the end. I was chasing the footy trying to get 50. I was couldn't quite do it. 50. It would have been nice to just have 50. But yeah, anyway.
So back end of the career, how does it finish up for you? How do you finish? You told to move on? Are you done and dusted? Are you injured? What's the end like?
So I was still playing. So 2017, we've gone through a rough trot. St Kilda hadn't played finals for a lot of years. Basically, Nick Riewoldt and I were the only two left from that premiership era that were still playing and were the leaders of the club at that time. But coming towards the end, I was still playing pretty good footy in 2017. And then we're playing a game in Sydney sort of I'm going to say about round 15. And true story, I don't think I've shared this story, but so my wife and I at that stage were trying for children, tried for a while, got on the plane, and literally as we're about to take off, I'm sitting on the plane, and my wife rings me and we'd had a miscarriage. I thought she was pregnant. So she had a miscarriage. And I remember sitting on the plane next to Rui and thinking, should I get off the plane? The right thing to do would probably go home and see my wife and spend it with her. And she was sort of like, no, look, just, you're on the flight. And I didn't want to make a scene because the plane, we're literally sitting on the plane. So I got to Sydney, spoke to her again, said, do you want me to fly home? And she said, no, look, you're there now. I've got friends, I've got my sister coming over, whatever, just play the game. And so I sort of, it was a pretty emotional 24 hours for me, and hadn't slept. And it's amazing the human body. Like you would know about, they talk about the neurological elements of, if you don't, how do you get injured if you don't sleep, or all these sorts of things. Like it does play a part. So that game against Sydney, I was actually going pretty well. My half time, I think I had the most disposals for the team, whatever. But then came out in the third quarter and ripped the hammy, and I hadn't been injured for a couple of years, hadn't missed footy for years, but ripped the hammy, and it was a good one too. So I walked off the SCG, and there was this moment where I actually did look around, just in case it was the last time I ever played, because it was 6 weeks out from the end of the season or something. So I took it all in and thought this could be the last time I walk off the field. Anyway, I didn't get back for the end of the season. There was no real rush, to be fair. We weren't playing finals, and my rehab, late in my career, wasn't necessarily diligent to try and get up for one more game. And it wasn't a big thing for me to try and play one more game. I've never been sort of that type. And then there was conversations about my contract. I still thought I was playing well enough to play, but St Kilda were going through a rebuild. They wanted to play the kids. And then I remember getting a text message from the coach, Alan Richardson, at the time. I was at home, and he said, are you at home? I'm in the area. I'll pop in. I thought, the coach lives nowhere near me. This is not just I'm just going to pop in and say good day. So he came over, sat me on the couch, and said, "Yeah, look, we're going to head in a different direction. We want to start playing these kids, and you're playing half back, and we've got a couple of young blokes that we want to get some games into. So we're not going to give you another contract."
Difficult at the time.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Again, pretty pragmatic. Like I sort of half knew it was coming. I sort of got it. I get what the club were doing. You still think you could play, and I probably could have. I could have played another year.
And when you're in it,
yeah,
it's very different now. You could probably look back and now and be like, well, they were rebuilding. And
that's right.
Whatever.
Yeah, and I get where they were going, but I probably was. I definitely was flat at the time. St Kilda the following year then had a horrible year. Only won a handful of games. The kids that they thought they were going to play at halfback were no good. What was nice, probably in my own selfish way, was 12 months later, I saw Alan Richardson and he comes up and he says, you know what? We probably got that wrong. We probably missed your leadership. We probably undersold what else you did for us, you know, in regards to your leadership and how you would have supported the other young kids and all that sort of stuff. So in some ways, it was a nice sort of closing chapter where the coach said, we probably should have kept you for 12 more months. But that's all right. That's how it all ends. As you know, mate, 95% of players don't end on their own terms. There's a hand. I reckon in my whole time of St Kilda, I reckon there's only maybe 2 that I knew that retired on their own terms. Lenny Hayes was one where the club said, we want you to play one more year. And he said, I'm done. And I think Robert Harvey, who by that stage was about 37 years of age and had played 380 games.
He was sleeping at the club.
He still would have played, and they had a bit of a discussion, and we'll call that one a mutual one. But that's it. Everyone else still thinks they can keep playing.
Even blokes that say they'll retire.
No one retires. No one retires.
Yeah, everyone's got the same.
Was it sort of St Kilda or nothing for you then? Like if you thought maybe I could play?
At that stage, I was done. There was a year. There was a period a couple of years before that when St Kilda were starting the rebuild. Scott Waters was coach. I really wasn't enjoying my time at St Kilda. It wasn't a good vibe, wasn't a good environment. They were moving on. So Del Santo had gone, Goddard had gone, Ben McAvoy had gone, and the rebuild was on, and it wasn't enjoyable. So that was the only time I sort of half had a look around. I met with Kangaroos in Essendon and just chatted about, it was the start of free agency. So whatever that was, 2015 or something like that. But never really was serious about leaving. And in the end, the club, the list manager and CEO come back to me and said, look, you're not going anywhere. We're moving on Del Santo. We can't move on both of you, so you're staying. Del Santo's going. So from there, we've got a contract and finished out the career at St Kilda, which I'm glad I did.
Happens even in like a real workplace. Like people start leaving. You're like, I don't really love it as much anymore. You start looking elsewhere because all your close mates are gone.
Yeah, different. It is different. Yeah.
What's the transition to media like post career then?
I've been so lucky. Like I understand how blessed I am and how lucky I am to do what I do. Like, as I said to you earlier, I'm a footy head. For me to get to say to my wife, I'm going to work and I'm off to the MCG to go and watch a game of footy or call it or talk about it, I don't take for granted how lucky I am. So it was sort of probably late in the career you start thinking about it and to be able to transition and now do this full time. Yeah, I don't take it for granted.
The play-by-play calling, something you've added to it. That's a skill from the guys I've been around over in Perth. Certainly, it's a new beast.
Yeah,
special comments. If you know the game, do a bit of research. You can see and say what you say. Play-by-play.
Yeah,
you can't just rock. You're not rocking up to the game going, "Oh, who's playing today?"
No, it is different. Yeah, there's a lot of work in that. But again, it was more, and I said through being quite pragmatic and understanding where I was, I knew if I wanted to go into footy media, I'm not Matthew Pavlich, Jonathan Brown, Nick Rewald. I'm not just going to be able to walk in and have a gig for life because of my reputation. I needed to work hard at it. So I was lucky enough that one of the guys at Triple M suggested to me, he goes, why don't you think about just doing some play-by-play ghost calling and see how you go. So my last year of St Kilda, maybe the last 2 years, I'd go into Triple M. They'd set up a screen for me with a game on with no audio. And I would just call the game, and then we'd listen back to it and get feedback. And
what's that like, listening back to
I hate
early days?
I hate it. I still hate it. Yeah, I probably should listen back to myself more, but I hate it. So that was sort of where it all started, and then had to do AFLW for a few years, and sort of build my craft and all those sorts of things to be able to get to the point where I am now.
Had any good mentors in the media space that you had along the journey, or are they former players? Or are they
not really? Not really. To be honest. It's strange because we're used to feedback, right? As a football player, you get feedback every week. In the media, you don't really get that. You don't get a lot of feedback about what you're doing. You just sort of
mostly from the public.
Yeah, exactly right. So nothing really in regards to that. I would say like David King's been great for me, more the analysis stuff and just understanding the nuances of media and what to sort of look for and how to go about presenting and the way to do it. So Kingy, I've sort of been lucky enough to latch onto him. I think he's one of the best in the business with how he sees the game, how he presents it. So I'm sort of trying to learn off him.
You do a lot, Fox Footy TV, you do radio, you do podcasts, bit of writing.
No writing. No, not a rider.
Well, not yet.
No, not a rider.
What do you love doing? If you're a player and you're a game day guy and you love playing, what's the most enjoyable part of what you're doing outside of footy now?
It's raising my 3 kids. So for me, I've got 3 young ones. My little boy's nearly 6, a 3-year-old girl, and a newborn. I had a newborn just before Christmas. So
well done.
It's nice to have the flexibility with the lifestyle. So to be able to not have to go to work at 9 and get home at 5 and all those sorts of things. It's taken up a lot of my time, but again, it's another one where I want to soak it in. Young kids, they go pretty quick, and everyone tells you, so you don't want to take it for granted. Again, these early stages, and my young fella's about to start Auskick, so I'll be able to do that on a Saturday morning before I get off and go to work and all those sorts of things. So the family, becomes a priority early days because, before I know it, they'll be too old.
Back at the club at all? Do you spend any time back at St Kilda?
Not at St Kilda. No, I don't do any work for the Saints. There's enough of the boys that are all there. I still do a little bit with Fremantle in their list management and recruiting space in the Melbourne office, which I really enjoy. I've got a vested interest in Fremantle. Clearly, I really enjoy that side of it, going to the office and talk footy, get to look at stats and watch vision and throw up ideas and all that sort of stuff. So that sort of complements the media as well.
We're at the part of the conversation where this really moves to social media, not social, social. Like it?
I like it.
Thought so.
Good point,
again, media operator.
Montagna
You would have sat in a lot of
many
meetings.
options.
What are we going to call this? What are we coming up with? So we've gone with social.
That's what Kingy's big one. You've got to have a tagline for this thing. You've got to have a tag.
I rolled out
It does
the
my
Kingies.
head in trying to have a tagline for everything. It's like, I can't think of something.
Yeah,
Montagna's moments.
Yeah, I know. There's all
the
this.
midweek tackle and the Kingy's got
The Wiggles web and the Clarko's cluster. And you got to name something. I'm like, the naming is the hardest part.
You can imagine how excited Kingy was when I rolled this out there. Right. So usually this is where people get to ask you the questions, but a bit of a late call up here, so we don't have that. But what we have for you is the BackChat Backman diaries.
Yes.
We're going to talk about Backman, right? So you spent a bit of time in the cage by the sounds of things, thanks to Ross Lyon, right? So you might know what we're talking about here. But this year, Leigh, we have a little look at that. This year, look, we feel as though the Golden Fist is perhaps falling away a little bit.
The Jack Buckley, good one.
Nick Dacos got 3 votes last week in the Golden Fist, right? We can't.
That's not
Personally,
not
as a dour role-playing defender, I can't have it.
No, that's not the point of it.
So the Jack Buckley medal, it goes to the BackChat Backman of the Year.
Yep.
Jack Buckley won it last year, the inaugural winner.
Good.
So we now have the Brownlow, the Norm Smith, the Coleman, and the Buckley.
I like it. Well
so
done.
this will be awarded to the best backman of every year.
Yep.
It's taken over the Golden Fist.
Yep.
Right. So on the back of that, I want to know your favourite current defender, and I will not accept. And we love him, Nick Martin, great player.
No.
I don't want the Leigh Montagnas. I
No,
don't want
that's
the
fair
Nick
enough.
Del Santos. I want a backman, and I want your favourite.
Where does the Tom Stewart fit in that?
Well, you're going to have to
There's
make
a lot
that
of
call. You're a media operator now.
I don't know if that's because there's a lot of offense in Tom Stewart. And there's a lot of not playing on an opponent, Tom Stewart.
So I would say Tom Stewart, great player. Could be one of the best players playing the AFL right now. Probably not what I'm looking for.
Nah, you want more the
want
the
Dower.
1v1.
I want
a good one.
I want to, if there's an opportunity to get the ball in the hands or there's an opportunity to maybe just turn your back and open up a bit of space, it's the one running away from the footy.
Yeah. Give me a sec. This is a good one. Give me a sec.
I like the Thornton feeling
it's good.
that Leigh's putting
Bit of
into
care.
this.
See, I am a big Stephen May fan. I think Stephen May is.
So I could cop Stephen
Yeah.
May.
You cop Stephen May?
Just.
The only
You're
You're
sort
sort of,
I've seen him in a glove before, so that sort of takes him into Dower types.
Yeah, but you want even more Dower.
yeah. We can throw some.
Well, then I can't go past Cal Wilkie.
There we
Callum
go.
Wilkie
There we
fits
go.
the bill.
Now we go.
Unassuming, gets the job done, undersized, beats his man week in, week out,
Yes.
gets it done. So I'll go Cal Wilkie.
Can kick, but not a great user.
Not a great user,
fine.
but you're sort of happy for him to kick the ball. He's not like Zach Dawson's. You sort of want him to kick the footy, but he gets the job done week in, week out. So Cal Wilkie should be a contender for this medal.
Right, I'll come back to the second question because I think the man you just mentioned may feature in this one. Defender diaries from your career. I want a story from a teammate or an opponent, a defender across the journey. And I looked at defenders you played with. Zach Dawson was top of the list of Dower types.
Yeah.
A real Dower operator. That Dower that the coach just pulled him from St Kilda over to Fremantle with him, right? Have you got a Zach Dawson story or a defender story? Something that happened during your career, something that if we just heard from David King that Mick Martin rocked up to a game one day with fake tan rubbed all over him and we weren't quite sure what Mick was thinking. Have you got a defender diary for us? You got a defender story?
I do, and it's Stephen Baker as a defender. So the lockdown small defender. So you're probably thinking the key defenders, but Stephen Baker fits the bill perfectly.
Big friend of the podcast, Stephen Baker.
Is he? He's done the podcast.
friend
Good.
of-
And one of those teammates you just love playing with, right? You gave him a role and he would shut that player down. But he had no idea about footy. Never watched footy. Didn't know anyone. We played a game one day where we would name a coach and say, what team does he coach? And he didn't know. So we'd go, Adam Simpson. He'd go, I've heard of Adam Simpson. And we go through, and then one day we said, Neil Craig. And he goes, oh, you've made that name up. He goes, that's not a real name. We said Neil Craig. He didn't even. But all he would do is he'd needed to be told which player he was playing on. And then he would watch that player's vision and just study that player. But that was all he used to do. So that was his go. But he was the old school, he had this trick where he used to do the old punch him in the back of the elbow all the time, constant. So that was his little trick to the small for Eddie Betts and all those guys. And he would take pride in one day, one of the small forward would run off the ground holding his elbow. Like he's like, got him. Like he had all the dirty tricks. Like one day he broke his hand and he had to wear like a plastic sort of plate. And we're in the physio room one day, as we used to sit in the physio room, and then we look over, and there's Stevie Baker sharpening it, so it had like a little, so the plate that he wore had like a point on the end. We go, what do you guys? Well, when I punch him in the back of the eye, he goes, the point's gonna like so
Wolverine,
like Wolverine. He had this like weapon that he went out and played with. He was old school.
Something the injury was in 2010, and Stephen Baker still got strapping on his hand in 2014.
Yeah. When he got that, it became a weapon. So Bakes was he was a different unit. Like that was sort of him. Like one day we were playing the Western Bulldogs. He was playing in defence, and then he got moved. A message came out midway through the game to go and tag Matthew Boyd, who was a good player at the time. But because Bakes never watched footy and he hadn't been told about it, he didn't know who Matthew Boyd was. So he runs into the centre square. And
middle of the game didn't know.
In game, he had no idea. He didn't know. So he goes and stands, right? And the boys go, he goes, I'm in here to tag. The boys are like, right, just go and stand. So he goes and stands and he starts nudging his player. And in the centre bounce, he's tagging now. And then Del Santo looks at him and goes, who are you tagging? He goes, Matthew Boyd. And Del goes, no, that's Daniel Cross. Matthew Boyd's that one over there. And he goes, oh, and he goes and stands over on Matthew Boyd and starts tagging him. He didn't know who he was tagging. So the boys had to tell him which player was Matthew Boyd. And then he went and kept Matthew Boyd to about 5 touches for the second half. So
bloody
he was one of the greats to play with.
BackChat diary. There we
perfect.
go. Leigh Montagna. Now the last one, I want you to reflect on this statement and I want you to give your thoughts and feelings on it. Forwards sell memberships. Right? People come to watch them play, kick goals. Mid-sign sponsorships. That's where the money's at. But backs win premierships. Right? True, false, thoughts, feelings?
100% true.
Really?
100% true. Right. Defence wins premierships. And it will always be the case. Still is today in 2024. If you can't defend, you can't win flags. So they are the ones that internally get the credit, but they don't get it externally. I completely agree with you.
Wow, there you go.
No,
Great.
I agree.
Well, so Kingy said, no way. No way.
Really?
Oh,
he laughed.
He's got the dark up forward.
You need the defenders. They get it done.
You got anything else for it?
No, that's good. Brilliant.
Mate, that's us done and dusted. How'd you have fun?
Beautiful. Very nice. Thank you for having me on.
BackChat, __ on socials. Thanks to our sponsors, KO Sports for getting us here. Paywise, Mighty Athletic, Whippersnapper Whisky, Mamba Digital, TABtouch, Shelter Brewing Co, Leadable Precinct. Yeah, got a few. Thank you very much, Leigh. Yeah, thank you. And thank you to our sponsors. Thank you. BackChatpodcast.com.au. You can find all our stuff there. Mate, thank you very much.
Thank you. Enjoy.